Hi, I'm Sasha, and today we're going to do a studio tour. Today you'll see everything from my lighting and camera setup to my backdrop and some of the tools that I use on a daily basis. So whether you're looking for some ideas for your own home studio or if you'd just like to get an idea of how I film my videos, keep watching. So this is my studio. It's actually crammed into a pretty small space. I believe this is designed as a dining nook. On the right here we have some IKEA drawers. These house a large portion of my makeup collection. It's really handy because I can just reach in here as I'm filming, and I can even actually reach a lot of these drawers from my filming chair. So next I wanted to cover my backdrops. I use these Savage backdrop papers. I have a few more colors than this, but I only have a few up right now. This is actually kind of an expensive system. You can do it a lot cheaper with things like curtain rods. But I got this because I wanted to have multiple up at once, and they actually have these where you can pull them to make them go up and down. It's really handy, and I like that because I can do multiple backdrops in a single shoot if I want. If you're looking for more inexpensive backdrop options than something like my setup, a lot of people do recommend going to the fabric store or using bed sheets. I actually used to use a setup where I had a bed sheet along a backdrop stand. It was a little bit annoying to set up because I had to steam it because my sheets got kind of wrinkly. But in general, it can be a really good, affordable option, especially if you don't have to keep setting it up and taking it down the way that I did. Next, I have a backless chair. This is actually a rotating stool. I got this specifically because I wanted to do rotating shots. I'll put a little clip here, but a lot of the transitions I use have me spinning. So when I sit, it was really important for me to be able to rotate and do those spinny transitions, and I like that you can't see the back in the background. This one I also do recommend because it was pretty inexpensive and it's also quite comfortable. I do sit in it for many hours at a time, and I'm pretty fond of it. Next we have the makeup table. I typically set out everything I'm going to use for that day ahead of time. So you can see I kind of go from eyeshadow into lips and other finishing products. This table itself we got from Amazon. It's a really nice size, and I like that it also folds up, which is really handy if you want to use it anywhere else in your house at a different time. I also have this sort of silver paper here. This is actually a photography reflector. I just folded it over the table. It helps reflect some extra light into my face. Other essentials include this mirror. I use this when I'm looking at my makeup. So for example, I'll look at my face and I'll be able to do my eyeliner a lot more easily because I can actually see what's going on. I position this right below my camera. This is the Canon M50 and it's been really good for me. I really like it for the most part. I also have the camera hooked up to this monitor here. It's not quite as bright as I want it to be, but it was one that I had on hand, so I probably won't change this one out for a little bit. I actually have this monitor attached to a stand, which I'll show you in a minute. This is my monitor stand. Basically, it's a rolling TV monitor stand, and it's really helpful because I can move it around as I need. It's a little bit crooked for some reason, I'm not quite sure why. So when I film myself, I like to line myself up using this grid. This is actually an internal feature in my camera. I try to get it so my head is about lined up with these grid lines, and usually I try to look straight on. So this helps a lot, especially when I'm doing transitions, because I can get in approximately the same spot. It's not always easy to do, but it at least gets me in the right ballpark. Also on my table, I often have my laptop. I typically use this to play music or if I have notes. So behind my laptop here, I have a speaker. This is a Sony speaker. It has a Bluetooth option, but I like to have it plugged in. So for a lighting setup, I actually use 4 different lights. The first is this key light here. It is a very softly diffused mono light. It is the Godox SL150, and it has this giant diffuser on it, which is called an Angler boombox, 36 inches. I also wanted to point out that if you're going to get a light that is kind of heavy duty like this, you may need to get something like this C-stand. This was one of the more expensive parts of this whole setup, but because the light and the octo box were so expensive, it required extra support, so you probably don't want to use a normal light stand for it. You probably want to get something more heavy duty like this. To my left, I have this LED bank. This is a newer LED bank, but this one is really handy because it comes in different colors. So if you see in my videos that it has different colors, it's because I'm using this light, typically on this one side of my face. I really like this one because it was relatively inexpensive, and it also allows you to choose the light and the intensity. So if you want it to be like super intense red or super soft blue, you can do it anyway. I also have 2 of these newer LED lights banks. These ones are actually kind of small, and I used to use them with a ring light in my old YouTube setup. but they actually still work really well. And so I have one right here which kind of lights underneath my chin. So if you're trying to go for a more professional look, I feel like this underlight is one that really helps. You can notice the difference when I just turned it off and when I turned it back on. It kind of just gives a little bit more fill and gives you a more professional look. So I have another of these newer LED lights. I'll just turn it off real quick so you can see better, but this one is actually lighting up the backdrop. So this is what it looks like without the backdrop light, and this is what it looks like with the backdrop light. It's a lot more obvious in the camera than it is on my cell phone, which I'm using now, but in general, having a backdrop light is really nice to give you some separation. So those are the 4 lights that I use. This is actually the 3rd iteration of my lighting setup that I've used since I got started a little less than a year ago. I can definitely do separate videos that talk about that, but basically when I started I was just using a ring light, and then after that I did a ring light and those 2 little newer lights kind of on either side to help fill in the sides. Really quickly, I also just wanted to go over a couple other tools that I love in my studio that make things a lot easier. This is a remote for my camera. It's really nice. It has 2 different modes for photos and for videos. I use this remote all the time. I use it when I'm doing my videos. It's really handy because I can just press it right here. If I actually go and touch the camera, sometimes it moves the camera and it can be a problem when I'm trying to get a really nice transition. I also really like having this because when I'm taking photos of myself, it's really hard sometimes to be able to reach the camera. So sometimes I'll even do crazy things like putting it under my toe or something so I can use both hands to kind of pose and get something that looks more professional. When I do my Instagram stories and unboxings, I often use this little tripod. This is a Joby Gorilla Pod, and on top is just a really cheap kind of cell phone tripod mount. So in general, I'll just kind of set it up on the table here, and it's really helpful because it can either film me against the backdrop, or you can move this down so it can look at whatever products are on the table. Also for my unboxings, I wanted to mention that I have this marble printed poster board. It's basically a foam board. I also place this on the table. It's pretty big, but in general it's really nice to have things like this for photography or for unboxings, just because I felt like things look a little bit nicer and it's a nice clean surface. You don't have to do something like this, but it does kind of give things a little bit more of a luxury look. I also wanted to go over my organizer here. I have all my brushes in this brush organizer. It's just like an acrylic brush organizer I got off Amazon. And then I have a cup here where I will put my brushes as they get dirty. This is just kind of overflow brushes. I also have frequently used items over here. So this is stuff like makeup remover, setting spray, things that I'm going to be using a lot. I also have makeup wipes there and some reusable makeup remover pads. Here is where I dump all my makeup. I try to put little stickers on it that says when I opened it so I can keep track of how old it is. And then here I put all my lash glue, and I keep a pair of scissors and lash tweezers, anything that I need to apply lashes or that I'm going to be using over and over again. I also have some disposables like tissues and cotton swabs. I try to use the reusable last swab, but occasionally I do need to use the disposable ones. So that is it for my studio tour, and I hope you found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments if you have any other questions or if there's anything else you'd like me to show.